coming to my talk. I'm quite chuffed to have been asked to come here and hang out with some familiar faces, some new faces. So my talk is Lost by Chance, Lost by Choice. When Alex approached me about the talk, she said that this month was going to be about being lost, and so I thought that's a pretty appropriate title for freelancing, because I find that we go up and down in peaks and troughs with our process and with our work, and find ourselves in lots of low points where we lose our sense of identity. And so I thought, I've got so much information and so much material that I can use for this, so this will be a piece of cake, so hopefully this goes really well. Thought I'd go back to the very beginning where it all started. I, like Alex said, was born in America. My mum and dad met at Waverley Station, so I've got a lot of connection to Edinburgh. Grew up as a kid coming over here. Every couple of years we'd, save up our money, come over, hang out, go back to the States, start saving up for the next trip so that we could hang out with my mum's family. And so I guess unbeknownst to me, just hanging out with my dad with his camera, little did I know at the time that it would transpire into what we have today with my work. And it didn't take very long for me to get acquainted with cameras after that. I just gravitated towards the medium like moth to a flame, and haven't really looked back. It's been basically a childhood hobby turned career, and I've been very fortunate for things to unfold as they have. And so just to fast forward a little bit, I studied in Jackson, Mississippi, and moved there when I was just about to turn 18. I lived in Baton Rouge, that's where I was born. And so lived in Jackson for 7 years, 4 years studying art and photography, and then got my feet wet with my freelance work. And so started kicking about, finding my feet, figuring out what to do. And it was all very exciting. I finished my coursework and launched myself into the bright, beautiful world of freelancing and whatever other odd jobs I could do to pay the bills. And as you do with freelancing, I'm sure some of you can relate that you've got to pay the bills, so sometimes you've just got to do the work that you've got to do, and you've got to sort of lose yourself in order to make ends meet. And so that's sort of what I found myself getting lost in, was taking opportunities as they came, because starting out, you kind of have to be a yes man, and for me I found that was just foundational. That's where I learned what I liked and what I didn't like. Also, it was how I started to understand how I function with my work. But then also, it aided to my loss of identity, because I did a lot of fashion work for a clothing brand over there, and as well as that, in any of my free time, I would also collaborate with filmmakers, artists in any given opportunity. But I would also work for ad agencies, and I would do really weird photo shoots. So sometimes I would photograph glamour and beauty and fashion, and then sometimes I would be in a school classroom that's been used to promote a hunting tool that is supposed to give you night vision while you're hunting deer, and they needed stills, and so I thought, sure, it'll pay the bills. I'm sure some of you can relate to this with your work. You just kind of have to do it sometimes. It's all fun and games until you sort of just really lose yourself, and you realise, are you really doing what you really want to do? And of course weddings as well, because photography, got to do weddings every so often. I just got to the point where I felt like I was at a crossroads, and I just needed to really make a change, do something drastic. I realised that my life works really well with drastic changes, shake things up every few years. I don't like to be complacent with my life and my work, and ever since a kid I always longed to live in Scotland. I always was really depressed every time I went back to America, and just really craved what I thought would be my life over here. So when I was about 23, I decided, do something drastic, leave my studio. How lame is that to be an artist and not have a studio and start saving money? Like, who does that? And especially when you're fresh out of university, it's hard to save money. So I did everything I could possibly do, put money aside, get on a plane, and then come over here just after I turned 24. So here I am in Edinburgh now. Oh, sorry, I meant to show you that. That was kind of how I felt prior to leaving America. That was when so I don't know if any of you can relate to this kind of picture, but yeah. So here, yeah, this is me having arrived and ready to go, really excited. I came here not as a citizen, though. I decided to wait until I came here to get my citizenship, even though I'm half Scottish. It's kind of tricky to understand what you need to do in order to, it's very red tape, all these things with government stuff. And so I moved here for 6 months, technically, can't work. So I took advantage of that, and I gave myself an unofficial artist resident sabbatical. And I have to tell you, if there's any opportunity where you can do this, do it, take the time off, because it's one of the only chances that you can really just step back and you can evaluate what you're doing with your life. Because when you're in the midst of work and you're hitting deadlines and you're getting by, that's all you can think about, really. And if you're in this routine of making this work and churning out work and work and work, that's all you know, and you don't even have a chance to consider alternatives. And so that's what I did when I got here initially. I lived at Stills. I got well acquainted with all of their facilities, and taught myself scanning film and all these other skill sets that I just didn't have time otherwise. And so that was great. And this was also foundational, CreativeMornings. It was one of my first things that I did whenever I moved to Edinburgh. And so to be asked to come up to the front and talk kind of blew my mind, to be honest. I got sort of weak in the knees a little bit whenever I got the email. It's like, me? I used to be that one in the very back over there, not knowing a soul. And so it's really special for me to be up here. So I have to thank people like Alex and CreativeMornings for giving an outlet for people who move to a city, don't know anybody, and nobody knows me. I've got no network, and this is such an ideal opportunity to start over. And so that's what I did when I moved here. And it was so liberating to move to a city and not know a soul. I felt very lost in the city, and I don't know if any of you have moved abroad or moved to another country, or even moved to a city where you don't know anybody. And there is that feeling of isolation, but also this feeling of liberation where it's like open playing fields. And now you've got all this opportunity. And, for me, Edinburgh is home to me because of my roots. But in a professional way, it was so foreign. And I was just like, I know that there's something here for me, and I'm going to find it. And so putting myself out there and forcing myself to be lost in a new city meant that I was forcing myself to find things that, push me forward with my career. And so, so Edinburgh's been very, very loving and welcoming, and it's been great. So this is where the wandering started, and this is where I would go and get lost in places and go exploring, and then start finding pals to photograph and to collaborate with. And thanks to Instagram, Instagram's how I got to know CreativeMornings. It's how I got to find people to photograph. And so obviously we're living in the 21st century, all of you know, take full advantage of Instagram because it's a treasure trove of opportunities, and you should definitely not take it for granted. So early days, living in Edinburgh, any opportunity to get away, it was kind of a balance of photographing people, photographing nature. It was so exciting. And that was just a fun little screenshot that I found whenever I was going through the archives. I had no idea where I was, and it didn't really matter. I was like, I have no idea what the Bridge of Allen is, but it sounds really exciting and sterling, and I kind of remember going on, holiday trips, and I remember ice cream journeys, but to actually just get on a bus, get out of town, find these new places, get lost. It's so cliche to say it, but you get lost, you get found, you find yourself when you separate yourself from what you're familiar with. And to put yourself in nature, it just infuses you with just unimaginable inspiration. And I have such a strong connection with nature. Like Emerson's one of my favourite authors, and can't get enough of his writing about nature. And so to actually place myself in these areas is really inspiring. So then, I start getting involved even more, get into some group shows, and then what happens is that after 5 months, I realised I've been told to do the wrong thing about the passport, and I've run out of time to start over, so I have to go back to America. So I moved back to America. I moved back to my home that I haven't lived in for 7 years, because I lived in Jackson. And I was like, well, what do I do now? I don't have a network there. I can't really go back to Jackson, so I guess I'll just hang out in Louisiana and bide my time and work. And I genuinely felt like pit of despair, like Princess Bride, just terrible. It was quite a dark time for me, because I finally had found my true home, and where I really thought I could flourish. And then it was almost like the rug was taken up under me, and I almost felt like I was just backtracking hardcore, and I got over myself. You have to get over yourself, it's not that big of a deal. It took about 5 months to get back, so it was fine. Little did I know that it only takes 5 weeks to get a passport, so if you have any questions about getting passports, come and see me, because I feel like I'm such a master at it now. But I would never recommend moving to a country and just assuming that these things are going to just work. I mean, maybe that's just kind of my nature. I'm very presumptuous about these things. So I came back and I got a job at Urban Outfitters on Princess Street at Christmas time, which is not ideal. But you have to do what you have to do. And that's what I did. And I also worked any other job that I could get my paws on. So I worked at the Secret Herb Garden. I worked at a call centre. If you want to really appreciate your work and your job and really pride yourself in working for yourself, work in a call centre or work retail at Christmas, do these things and do your graft work, and it will instill you with unending respect for other people who are doing their thing. But I'm not encouraging it at the same time. Don't put yourself through it if you don't have to. So anyway, back to exploring, back to getting lost, back to where I was, picked up where I left off, and that was so wonderful. And little did I know that before I moved abroad, buying this camera off of my friend Parker Fitzgerald would open up so many opportunities. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that photographer, but I started keeping up with his work a couple of years prior to moving. He used to photograph for Kinfolk magazine, and so if you're familiar with that magazine and Kinfolk Table, the cookbook, he did all the photography for that. And so we were on the same Facebook buy, sell film gear, and I saw his Rolleiflex, and I was like, Park Fitzgerald's Rolleiflex? For sale? And I can afford it? Okay. And all my savings was locked tight. I didn't even go for pints with my friends leading up to moving. I didn't want to spend any money, because when you live not working for 6 months, you're basically like early retirement. You're living off your savings. And with my job, I don't know if I'm ever going to actually retire. So I kind of felt like that 6 month sabbatical was like my taste of retirement. And so that being said, taking some money out and spending it frivolously on this camera was just out of the question, but I knew that it was the thing I had to do. And we became such good friends from it, because I didn't realise at the time that Parker loves Scotland, and he'd celebrated his 30th birthday the last year. And then I get this phone call a few months, or I guess a year later, after buying the camera, and he invited me along on this journey to Skye. And so I went along with him and his brother James and another photographer, Cornelius. We hopped in a car and we went on this road trip to Skye. And it was in the bleak of winter. It was February. It was terrible, depressing times. And to be given that beacon of light from my hero, Parker Fitzgerald. And he wanted me to go on a road trip with the boys. Sure, I'll look at my calendar, see if I can find some time. And I was losing my mind. So that was an amazing opportunity to get to know one of my heroes, bring him down to a human level. We got beyond the pedestal phase very fast, and I realised he was just as much of a nerd as me, and it was so great. We so many conversations about Lord of the Rings, and it was so liberating. And so that's Parker on the right, James, his brother, on the left. Cornelius was the one that photographed us. He's a lovely guy. So that's us in the Kerrang, hanging out, just, at 6 o'clock in the morning, as you do. We even got there at 5:30 just because we needed the photo. And this is what we got. And it was just an amazing anticlimactic morning, because we were expecting this incredible sunset to come over the mountains and just beams of light, and we woke up literally at 4 o'clock in the morning for this moment, and this is what we got. But actually, this is everything that you ever want to experience on Skye. This is where you get the drama and the mystery and the romance of the islands, because on a sunny day with the light, it strips it of all that mystery. And so I feel like I create my strongest work whenever it's the moodiest. And I also feel like I create some of my strongest work whenever I am my moodiest and whenever I'm in my lowest points. And this is a really good representation of, I think, what's going on internally when it's like February, March time. Work's dried up. Nobody has money to pay for freelancing because they've all blown it on their Christmas parties. And so it takes a lot of time for them to recoup and have money to spend on little old freelancers. What are they going to need photography for in the new year? So I escape. So instead of doing something drastic, well, the only drastic thing that I've done in these low times is give myself a mullet. So it wasn't quite Britney Spears, but every 5 years I give myself a mullet, and it's so exciting. So instead of doing that, I hopped on a bus and made this an annual ritual pilgrimage to Skye. And so about February, you can find me on Skye, getting lost in the mountains and hanging out, taking pictures. So it was a wonderful introduction to just a new chapter of life, of embracing the low times to create some of my most beautiful and, come to find out, successful work. Little did I know at the time, whenever I would go on these trips, that this work would actually launch my career in a way that I couldn't have fathomed. And I mean, I have to give a lot of credit to Parker and the guys for taking me under their wing, because they've turned into comrades, and they are advisors. If I ever get down about my work, they're always a phone call away, and never take that for granted. Find people that you can connect with and that you can reach out to in the creative world during these times, because it's essential, I think. And also, they help you find people who are a few years ahead of you, because they help you really nail the shot. So I was like, what's your medium reading? Okay, cool. Just kind of use that. Thank you very much. It's all about skill sharing, right? So going on these adventures just allowed me to start this portfolio that is an unofficial portfolio, because my Reverence series is a retrospective of 3 years' time, and they're all just on my wanderings and my travels, and come to find out, lay them all out, and as you do if you're a working artist, or artist in general, is that you have this subconscious ability to have this connected thread in your work. And when you take work that you've spent a few years on, all of a sudden it all makes sense, it all connects. And that's what's happened over all this time with these trips. And so I make a point to get away when I'm feeling low, because at least I know I'm going to get some good work out of it. I guess. So that's my rescue shot. So so we've become really good friends ever since, and made other friends on the Isle of Skye, who can show me other places, and places that I'd never find on Google. To find a friend who's born and bred on Skye means that you get all the insider secrets. And so just go through some of these pictures. And all of these images that are part of my Reverence series are also just what I stumble upon. Nothing is ever planned. I mean, sometimes our trips are planned, but it's just in passing, and I think that goes along with the way that I live my life. Just kind of have to go with what happens. And that's probably the face that I was making when my friend told me to look over and see this light. And I was like, what light? And then he's like, that light. And it took 10 seconds for that to disappear. And it was so exciting to be able to experience that. And sometimes you have to get out in the middle of nowhere to be able to be completely lost in these landscapes and to create imagery that transports you to places that you can only really dream of. And so take full advantage of any opportunity you ever get to go to these places, because they're so inspiring. And also just let your hair down and just enjoy downtime as much as you can. That's what I try to do whenever I go away. And let's go through some of these. It's all very moody, but at the same time, it's all moments of release. We were just sort of playing around on the top of this hill, and little did I know that by finding a place that would liberate you and give you this moment of having fun would actually produce really serious work. And people like Custom Lane, Keston Hare, and I had another exhibition this week at St Andrew's Square, last night and the night before, and it was this series, and I had no idea at the time that all these opportunities would come of it. So you never know what will happen when you find yourself in these times, and if you're able to create in these moments where that's all you can do, you're kind of stripped of everything else that you can possibly do. All you can do is kind of resort to what makes sense to you. I think that is the time to, carpe diem, make it happen, because you never know what will unfold from it. So these are just some of the prints that were part of the series, and you can see some of them at the Williams and Johnson at Waverley Station, and in Shoreditch down in London at Keston Hare's shop. We've got some of the work hanging up, and he's adopted it into his autumn-winter collection of this year in High Places. And that's in the Cruiser shop down in Leith at the moment. And that's from this week's exhibition. And here we are. And So anyway, thank you so much for giving me a listen and taking the time to learn about my work and my journey with Reverence and sort of a little bit behind the scenes. So thank you very much.